Good morning, everybody. Welcome to your Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Tuesday, the 9th of December. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by Blair Malloy. How goes it, Blair?
Morning, Derek. Yeah, it's going to go okay here for a Tuesday. It's a pretty wet and windy one here in Glasgow. It's to use an old Scottish term, it's a truly dreich morning here. So hopefully, getting some joy into our lives with the chat this morning that has certainly not been replicated with the horrible conditions outside.
Yeah, it is pretty grey and gloomy, but we are in winter after all, of course. So, yeah, it's just part and parcel of this time of year, of course, unless you are watching us from far-flung places. I know that many of you do just that from sunnier climes. So, jealous to each and every one of you. Right, before we get stuck in, a quick word for our podcast sponsors, Willows Fencing, the Glasgow-based fencing company you can trust and proud partners of the Rangers Review. If you're needing a new fence, then these are the guys to call. They offer free consultations and 10% off if you use the code Rangers Review over on their website, which is willows-fencing.com. King Charles Spaniel gets in touch. He is watching from further afield. He says, morning from Budapest, freezing here. Dear, that's all we need to know. Thanks for the update. Incidentally, I'm heading out tomorrow. I know Joshua, I think, is heading over today. So, yeah, I need to pack the winter woolies, that's for sure, but very much looking forward to heading out there. And I've been to Budapest before. So, yeah. What are you up to today, King Charles Spaniel? I've heard that the thermal baths are a recommendation. Tell me what you're up to this afternoon. We're all ears. Have you been to Budapest before, Blair?
I've not. No, it's one of the few places in Europe that I've never been to. One of the ones that's always been on the bucket list to go and visit. I think that when it came out the heart, there'd be so many Rangers fans that definitely seen that as one of the must-do away days because it's certainly good for a night out. I've heard. Let's put it that way. I'm sure that even if it's freezing outside, the insides of the bars in Budapest will not be shy of a few patrons over the next couple of days.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we can guarantee that.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, let's get stuck into the Rangers news. Building up to that game on Thursday night, of course, in the Europa League. Rangers for me. I'll get your thoughts, first of all, on what you see Rangers doing from here until the group stage finishes. I mean, it's Ferencvaros on Thursday, and then in the new year, Ludogorets at home at Ibrox, the Bulgarian side, rounding off the campaign away to Porto. For me, it's Europe is a pipe dream now, Blair. I don't think they're going to make it into the playoff round. I think they had to win against Braga in the previous game. If they had won that, they'd have been only 3 points behind qualification. As it stands, it's 5. For me, it's all but done. It's all about trying to get positive results from here on in. Do you think they're capable of doing that on Thursday?
Yeah, I don't want to get too negative about it because, like you said, things are relatively upbeat after that Kilmarnock win on Saturday, and people are going into this game in a good mood. People are going to enjoy the trip, and they're just going to enjoy following their team. In terms of what it actually means on the park, I am more inclined to say that Europe at this point maybe becomes a little bit of an unwelcome distraction. I think that after starting the way that he did in the tournament, I think it was always going to be really, really difficult to try and claw back at this point. I think it's going to be really, really difficult to try and make any sort of fist of this tournament now to try and progress. So even if Rangers do finish strongly, I do think it should be used to just build a little bit of momentum in the team. Maybe give some players some minutes in their legs when it's not league fixtures. There's maybe a bit more space in the park, and you can go out there and maybe try out some new things. I think it's also important just for morale levels and for the club's image as a whole that you don't finish right at the bottom end of that table. I think it's
Yeah.
if you look at it, obviously there's the practical terms of the coefficient, and there's the actual ramifications of that you always want to keep winning in Europe to keep ticking over those coefficient points, because I know Scotland will certainly be dropping down the rankings with all three teams pretty poor performances this year. So I think that it's always important to get the wins on that very practical level. But like I said, from a more club image perspective, I think not finishing in at the bottom of the Europa League standings is really important for morale and really important just for the club going forward. So, well, it is a little bit of an unwelcome distraction, because I think that everybody that I've spoken to, myself included, sees the league as a priority first and foremost. I think that most Rangers fans, if not all, would agree with you, saying that, okay, the league is where you need to put those run of wins together, and if there's a disappointing result in Europe in between that, it might throw off that league form a little bit. I don't know, but hopefully it can just be used as a little bit of a momentum builder, a little bit of a chance to, like I said, use some other players in the squad and maybe just get some minutes into your legs that you wouldn't ordinarily get it in the league.
Yep. James gets in touch, says, Derek, Cafe Royal in Budapest is a must. Thank you for the recommendation, James. I'll bear that in mind when I'm hot-footing it over there. Incidentally, if you want to learn more about Ferencváros and what we can expect on Thursday, I'm speaking to a former player of theirs at a little bit later, early afternoon, folks. So that'll be with you soon later on today as well. We've had him on before. He gives a bit of insight into a player that Rangers were linked with in the summer. He's a cracking guy, Akos Fuzi, and it'll be great to hear what he has to say about Thursday's opponents. Moving on to some of the news now. This came from Spain. Sort of touched on it slightly. I can't remember when I think I might have been on with you, Blair. I'm not entirely sure. Oscar Cortes, of course, is on loan at Sporting Gijón, as it's pronounced. And of course, he's not had much game time there. He's on a season-long loan, 22-year-old winger. Of course, has found games hard to come by at Rangers, but he's mustered just 7 appearances in all competitions for the Segunda Division team. Now, speaking to the Spanish publication El Comercial, he says, I'm focused on the team, on what's happening here, and other things are beyond my control. My mindset is to stay here and be with the team, to give my best every day and in every match so I can play. My focus is here at Sporting with my teammates. Perhaps I've had fewer minutes than some of my teammates, but I'm also motivated by the work the team has done. The group is doing very well. And maybe that's where I need to work a little harder. I have to keep working and training hard so that more opportunities can open up for me. So there was murmurings that he could be heading back to Ibrox and being recalled early from that loan spell. It's certainly not gone as well as he and many at Rangers would have liked, Blair, and it's a real conundrum, Oscar Cortes. We talk about the Chermiti transfer and how that was a staggering waste of money. This is another example of Rangers just splashing money that they shouldn't have. What best part of four plus million quid on this boy, and what did they do with him?
Yeah, it's a massive question, because, like you said, there are so many moving parts to this. He wasn't a cheap transfer to come in. He wasn't someone that Rangers brought in for a couple of £100,000 and took a gamble on, because if you spend that amount of money, you're expecting someone to come into the first team and be something of a game changer. I don't want to go down the road of, again, who could you have signed for that money, but you look around the SPFL right now, you look at what Hearts are doing, you look at all those players that Rangers could have picked up for the best part of £3 million, and you can't help but think it could have been spent so much wiser. It could have been spent so much better, and not even on just one player. You probably could have got a couple of players for that kind of money that would have done a job for Rangers in the league anyway. It was quite an honest interview, I thought, from Oscar Cortes, when he admits that in some places he could be working harder, and you don't often see that from players that actually say, this has really shown me the level I need to be at. It's shown me what I need to do to try and get into this team, because second division in Spain is obviously very competitive. It's obviously got a really good technical standard of football anyway. And for him not to be getting game time out there is really disappointing. That's the worst thing you can hope for in any loan spell. If you send someone out on loan to then go and play and they're just sitting on the bench, it must be absolutely infuriating for the parent club, because you're thinking, what is the point in him being over there? I know we touched on it the other week, where there was a bit of discrepancy whether he could actually go on loan again, whether he could play for a third team, because I know he came on against Alloa, had played against Motherwell for Rangers, and then he went out on loan. But I think he can still maybe go to the MLS, if that, am I right in saying that? He can, there's a couple of markets.
Yeah, I think he can do that, or a team in the Americas, I think.
Yeah, there are maybe a couple of markets that he can still go to. So I think the key thing for a player like Oscar Cortes is to just be playing football, because he's never ever going to recapture any sort of form if he's not going to get regular football. There is the other side of this, and I see this in a couple of the comments, that could Danny Rule be actually the man to get the best out of him? Could he actually be the kind of coach that a young player like this needs to actually unlock his full potential and actually fulfill what he's all about? Because when he was, with the few bright sparks that we did see from Oscar Cortes, he was very good at hugging that touchline. He was very good at going by a man. I remember he played against, I think it was Hearts or Kilmarnock last season, where he looked really promising. And there was definitely some little flashes where you could see, okay, this boy's maybe got something. And the way that Danny Rule has got his forwards operating. I mean, you just look at what he's done for Mikey Moore. Mikey Moore was being written off by so many Rangers fans at the early part of this season. Now, I'm not saying Oscar Cortes has the same talent level of Mikey Moore, because I think Mikey Moore will go on to be quite a special talent. I think he'll go for a lot of money in the future. I think
Yeah.
he's shown flashes of, to digress a little bit, I think, remember when you seen Hamza Agaman last year and you just seen from his touch and you went, oh, this boy's a player? I think
Yep.
Mikey Moore has kind of shown that a little bit. You've seen the way that he took that ball in against Kilmarnock the other night, let it roll on his body, it just went through and stuck it in the bottom corner. You don't do that if you're not a really naturally gifted football player. So I definitely think there is a lot of talent in him. And I think there is, to a lesser degree, something of that in Oscar Cortes, because I remember watching him at the very beginning when he first got the ball into his feet, when he was first taking a touch, taking on a man, shifting from side to side. I was thinking to myself, this guy has got something. This guy is not, with the best ball in the world. Yusuf Chirmiti has not shown me anything to let me think this guy's actually a technically gifted player. But Oscar Cortes, in the little bit that I had seen from him, I went, this guy's definitely got something under the bonnet there. So maybe Danny Rule can be the man to unlock that a little bit more. Maybe it would just take a bit of run of games, getting back to full fitness. Maybe it's a psychological thing. Maybe it's the adaptation to a new country. The whole myriad of factors for a 22-year-old why it's maybe not worked out. So I think that I'd like to see him at least get another opportunity under Danny Rule at Ibrox, because I'd hate to see a player that's come in for that much money just be cast aside because it hasn't worked from at Rangers, or it was an injury that stopped him in his tracks. So I think for me, if it's not working out for him, get him back and get him working with Danny Rule, because there's no point in leaving him out there to not play football. That seems like the worst for all parties.
Yeah, I'd imagine he's making an assessment on that with January looming, and a decision will be made on whether to keep him out there or to recall him. And it's up to, I guess, Danny Rule to decipher what he wants to do with him. Given the options there, I mean, Gassama has been blowing hot and cold, it's fair to say. Finlay Curtis, I know he came off the bench, which was good to see at the weekend. You've got him. Other than that, you've got Rabbi Matondo, the forgotten man. Be interesting to see what happens to him. Oliver Antman, of course, is out for the foreseeable future. Be interested to see if Rangers look to try and strengthen in the wide areas in January time. I think that would be something I would not be surprised to see if they look to bring someone else in. Got a bit of a shout coming in here from 81 Weasel. He says, morning Bears, can you wish my wife Sally a speedy recovery? Up at 4 a.m. to drive down in the rain to Birmingham for surgery. I'm enjoying the Rangers review to help me through the day. Well, best of luck, Sally, with your surgery. Hope it goes well, and good to have you guys tuning in to us on a Tuesday morning. Let us know how it goes. But yeah, I wish you all the best from everyone here at the review. Big shout out to Jamie, says he catch your beer in Budapest, Derek. Need to give Moore a free roll. And Elvis, as well, as he tunes into the show religiously, says, morning, Derek. I'm in Budapest here since Sunday. Feel like a local. See you for a beer tomorrow. Yeah, absolutely. Very much looking forward to sampling the Hungarian liquid, shall we say. So very much looking forward to that. Other bit of news we've have seen on the website yesterday from Chris. Rangers have paused their search for a new head of academy, while Andrew Kavanagh leads the recruitment drive to replace Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell at Ibrox. Now, of course, Jonathan Hunter-Barrett was all set to make the move from Wolves to head up the youth department at Auchenhowie. But with the sacking of Thelwell, the appointment has it was kiboshed last week, and he'll not be making the switch to Ibrox following further discussions between Rangers and Wolves. Now, it's our understanding that David McCallum will continue in the position he inherited following the departure of Zeb Jacobs back in April of last year, and he'll oversee the academy outfits at a range of age groups over the coming months. So no real appetite to get that fixed up immediately, Blair, which is probably understandable given that Rangers need to recruit for these positions of CEO and sporting director.
Yeah, I don't think it's any big surprise, to be honest, that Derek, and I think it's actually probably the right way for the club to go about it. I'd be very surprised if a head of academy was appointed before a CEO or a sporting director. That would seem to be a bit of a backwards move in my eye. I think that you have to build from the top down. I don't want to see a similar situation that was in place before, where you get one man who appears to be making all of the decisions with people round about him that seem to all be intrinsically linked with that one person. I would rather see a more diverse group of people at the top of the club who have came from all different backgrounds, came from all different experiences, all different clubs, and maybe don't have that previous link, unless they've worked together and actually had some success together, which I don't think had been the case in the previous incumbent. But I feel like if it's going to be that sort of structure, I think you need to go do your due process and get the best people in for the job. And that starts off with getting a CEO in, that starts off with getting a sporting director, a director of football, and then they'll make the decisions down the way to make that happen, to bring someone in as the head of the academy. And I think it's a very important role. I don't think it should be just disregarded. Head of youth development, I don't think it should be cast aside and just given to anyone who fancies the job, because how long have we spoken about, Derek, and this as a podcast in itself, that the youth development at Rangers has just been nowhere near good enough over the last 25 years, I would say.
Easy.
I think you try and think about good players who have came out of that academy. You think Barry Ferguson, you think Alan Hutton, Charlie Adam, Billy Gilmore. Billy Gilmore wasn't even Rangers player, really. He was signed up as a kid. And then Nathan Patterson. And then I'm really, really struggling to think of a sustained period of players coming through that are making their way into the first team. And it isn't even the case that these players need to go and be sold on for big money. You can have players who can come in and just be solid Rangers players that can do a job for the team, that you've brought up through the academy, and that you don't have to go back to the Cortes situation. You don't need to go and spend £3.5 million on a gamble to try and fill one of these positions if you've got somebody in the academy that you've actually given an opportunity to, and you've built them up into a Rangers player that is actually of decent standard. He's maybe not going to go for 20-30 million pounds, and not everyone has to be like that, but there can be some middle ground where you can just get players who are in the team to play for the team. I feel like that's something that has maybe been lost a little bit, that Rangers fans and football fans in general see that when you're a sort of a sailing club, if you will, if you're a club that's a development club, as I think Rangers probably are, that it always seems to be that the thought process has to be, can we get this guy? Can we produce these young players and then sell them on for £25 million? Because that's like the ideal situation, which is fine. And if you can get a few of those, that's perfect. But what seems to be forgotten about is that you can also just get guys who are just good enough for playing in Scotland, who are good enough to just play in the Rangers team every week and maybe aren't quite English Premier League level, but would actually do you quite a good job here. And those guys can come in, and those guys can be part of the team. So I think that whoever comes in as the head of youth development definitely should have that in as a brief, that for me, over the next 5 to 10 years, I would love to see the Rangers team have at least 3 or 4 academy products in it as starting 11 members every week. And I think every single Rangers fan would love that. I think that having that gives you such a solid base to perform in Scotland, to win in Scotland, and it gets you so much buy-in with the fans. I think the fans instantly give their own players more time. They instantly have that bond with them. You look at Finlay Curtis, there's been so much clamour for him to get in the team. All right, he came on the other night, he wasn't brilliant, but the fans are still giving him so many opportunities. He's going to get so much time from the fans. He's going to get so much patience. And I think that if you have 3 or 4 of those guys in the first team, then it just makes the atmosphere a whole lot better, and it also saves you money in the long term because you're not looking to fill positions with £3-4 million gambles that you're just not sure are going to adapt to Scotland, a la Oscar Cortes.
Yep, can't disagree with anything that you say there. A few interesting points coming in off the back of that. You're bang on about the academy. I remember when Dick Advocate was there, and he made sure that Rangers built that, well, Murray Park as it was known at the time. I thought Rangers were going to turn into a sort of Ajax and would see a sort of conveyor belt of young boys coming through. But it's just not happened that way. Perhaps I thought wrongly at that point. Well, obviously I did. James Skeen with the point says, we used to produce solid players, more Ross, Bob Malcolm, Stephen Hughes, etc. Absolutely. We don't even get guys like that to come in and do the business anymore and do a decent job for the team. I mean, Finlay Curtis has been on the fringes this season. Leon King fell at the wayside. Alex Lowry, we talked about Bailey Rice last week. There's no one really that's came through and really made the position their own, which is a big problem. It's not just a Rangers issue. I think it's a Celtic issue as well. I think Kieran Tierney is the last player to come through their academy properly. It's went on to good things. So,
these are the kind of players that I'm talking about. Like, no disrespect to guys like Bob Malcolm. I've interviewed Bob Malcolm, spoke to him a lot. I really like his company. I really like interviewing him. He is a player who was a good player in Scotland, and he was a good player for Rangers, and he was a solid member of the squad, solid member of the starting 11. You could depend on, you could trust him, and you knew what you were going to get from a guy like Bob Malcolm. And you go, why are Rangers not producing players like that anymore who can just come in and do a job for the team? Why are Rangers not bringing through kids who can supplement the team and be there on first off the outskirts and then make their way in? You look at guys like Chris Burke even coming through the academy, who you would look at and go, all right, he's maybe not a first team starter every week, but he certainly does offer something coming in off the bench. He's certainly a different option. And also, it means, like I said, you don't need to go out and spend that kind of money on someone else. I mean, you touched on it's not just a Rangers issue; it's a Celtic issue as well. They've also managed to bring through guys like James Forrest, much maligned James Forrest, but nonetheless, that's a boy from the academy. He's been at that club for 15 years. Whether he's had his ups and downs, but he is intrinsically rooted in that club with the fans, and he's done so much. We're a Rangers version of that. We're a Rangers version of these players that are club legacy players that you can say are going to get 500 appearances, that are going to be here for the long term. That means that Rangers don't need to absolutely rip up the scoreboard every single season, sign 9 new guys, and have nobody with that thread line, you know?
Yep. Gaz with the point, and I would bring this back in a heartbeat. I've said this in many shows before. It says bring back the reserve league. You hear old pros talking about the reserves and how it made them fit and ready for men's senior football. You don't get that anymore. It's all playing against your own age group. Maybe a few ringers in there at times, players coming back from injury and the likes, like we've seen with the under-19s the other week there with Kieran Dill, Dujon Sterling playing in that game. I think there was one other, I can't remember who, but I think I would bring that back in a heartbeat. I think it would do the players of the world a good. We seem to have a lot of players, and those 3 players that we mentioned would have played in said reserve league back in the day, but it is no such thing anymore. So just part of the modern game, unfortunately. A few interesting issues I wanted to bring up here. Well, Neil says, slightly left field, but says, you think it's time to bring Mo Salah home? I did enjoy Jamie Carragher being brought to task on Monday Night Football last night. That was quite amusing, but he is not flavour of the month down there at the moment, down at Liverpool. What have you made of the circus down there, Blair? I mean, Liverpool are having an absolute shocker of a season, and it wouldn't have been helped by Mo Salah coming out at the weekend saying that the club have thrown him under the bus.
Yeah, on and off the park, I think it's not going great down there. I always find it really interesting when players just come out and from a purely journalist perspective, to just digress a little bit, you're not expecting players to say anything, right? You go and interview players and you don't expect them to give you much. You expect to have to tease it out. You expect to have to ask some difficult questions and try and work your way in to really get to speak to them. When somebody comes out and just goes off on one straight away and just basically burns their entire career in front of you, you're just sitting looking at them like, right, okay, no problem, absolutely. It's absolutely incredible what's happening down there.
Yeah.
I think that for a player to have so much power in there, to have so much so much status, that seeing something like that can basically rock the entire foundations of a club is pretty crazy. I did see some rumours that maybe if Arne Slot were to move out, Steven Gerrard could be back in the hot seat at
Yeah.
Liverpool, potentially for
You'd love that.
an interim basis, which would certainly be a bit of a full circle moment, seeing him potentially in the dugout. Which would be something else, to be honest, if he were to take over short term. And I
Yeah.
think I for one would wish him all the best if that were to come to pass, to see
Yeah.
Stevie Gerrard back in the dugout at his hometown club.
Yeah, it'd be quite something. It really would be. But yeah, it's pretty entertaining stuff. Incidentally, I'd be getting rid of Salah as quickly as I could. It looks like he's a bit of a bad egg at the moment, and you do not need that. That's for sure, despite him being a top player. And this is a point going back to Rangers, of course. DB Cooper gets in touch. He says a bit of a random point, but Lennon Miller isn't getting game time in Italy. Should we try to get him in on loan with an option to buy? Of course, he joined Udinese, and yeah, you're quite right on that front. He's been coming off the bench sparingly in Serie A for Udinese. His last game, incidentally, came off the bench against Juve at the end of October. Hasn't been utilised since. He's played a couple of games in the Coppa Italia as well. I think he played half an hour against Juventus in the round of 16, which they lost recently. But he isn't getting as many games as he would have liked. I think I've seen something from the Udinese coach earlier on in the season saying that he has to work on a lot of aspects of his game, and they may be open to loaning him out in the summertime. Would you be open to that, Blair? Do you think that is a move that Rangers should be exploring?
I absolutely wouldn't be against that at all, Derek. I think he's a really good player. I think he's a really tidy player. I watched him a lot for Motherwell last year, and at times, even at 18 years old, he looked like the best player on the park. He looked just. We talked about that earlier. That having that smooth touch, that silkiness on the ball, that calm and composure on the ball. I think he's got that in abundance, and I think he would be. I think he'd be really good in this Rangers team as someone that can put their foot on the ball in the middle of the park and make forward passes. I definitely think that would be a move to explore. Obviously, you do have this bit of a slightly cautionary tale of Bailey Rice, his former teammate at Motherwell, but Lennon Miller's progressed so far beyond that Serie A teams are willing to come and take him. I definitely think now that if he wants to get out and play football, Rangers should be looking at him. They should be open to him and bringing him back to a league that he knows. Especially with World Cup coming up, that's another massive factor, and this is something that
Yeah.
I think that Rangers should be looking at in January, because I get the argument that people say January is a really hard time to do business. It's hard to get players in. Understand that. But we do have this extra factor of, in 6 months' time, there is going to be a massive global show in America. And there's going to be so many players that are maybe just out of favour right now that are going to absolutely be wanting to play football for the next 6 months. They will absolutely want to turn up and play week in, week out at a high level, at a level they're going to get noticed, to make sure they secure their spot in that plane. And especially if you're a Scottish international, if you want them to be taken notice of for the national team here, you want to turn up to the top end of the SPFL if you can. So Lennon Miller, okay, if he's not getting game time in Udinese, if he doesn't play for 6 months, I don't know. I know that Steve Clarke is loyal to faces that he's chosen before, but it's very hard to pick a guy when he's not really played a lot of football. So if Lennon Miller were to come back here, were to play consistently, maybe win something with Rangers before the end of the season, I think that would do his chances of getting on that plane absolutely no harm at all.
Yep, you make a valid point there on the World Cup. I wonder if Rangers will be looking to prize some players in, almost Frank de Boer style back in the day when he was looking to build up his fitness ahead of Euro 2004. Just going back to Bob Malcolm, this caught my eye, and when we're talking about Bob, he says, Neil says, Bob could cross a ball, absolutely outstanding. Yet nobody could ping a ball like Bob Malcolm. He was sensational at that. That was one of his strengths to his game. Thank you to Day in the Life. It says, smash the like button for the lads at Rangers Review. Thank you, buddy. Yeah, if you like the show, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button if you aren't a subscriber, folks, as well. It helps us a lot here at the channel. Right, that will do us there. A big thank you to Blair, as ever. Thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in to the programme. Very much appreciated, as ever. As I touched on, we'll get some Ferencvaros insight a little bit later on. And tomorrow I'm off, so I think it's yourself. Is it you and Johnny that's on, Blair, if I'm not mistaken? At one point, Friday or Wednesday, I have no idea.
I think it's Friday that I'll be hosting the show, but I will be on round about the game, speaking to Josh over in Budapest as well. And yeah, I'll be here all week, as the old comedy adage goes. I'll be here for the final.
Yeah, if you are travelling over to Budapest, folks, then safe travels to you all. Maybe meet one or two of you when I land over on Wednesday. Right, enjoy your Tuesday, whatever you are doing, and I'll chat again soon. Bye for now.